Hey, Scary here at La Forêt. I thought I'd do another little out and about. I know I only did one recently, but we've seen some interesting things today actually. Watched an interesting one. Unfortunately, it's one of these 19 fake voices. Quite well done, but it's all to do with the old world buildings and everything. Very interesting, because we've been talking about it for ages, about how they were able to construct these buildings, but just for some unknown reason they forgot to put toilets and bathrooms in them. And anyway, this particular episode really covered it very, very well. And also how they were able to run these incredibly large fountains and rotate the water. And of course the mainstream says, well, it was all fed by another load of made up rubbish. Water will always run downhill because it's heavy. But anyway, and we've been talking about this for a year or so now, and a lot of the channels that cover this stuff and do some great stuff, often the subject of how these buildings were heated and had constant heating in places where it was impossible to do that unless they had some kind of underground system. So we thought that was pretty neat. So I saved that into my playlist, and it does cover some really good stuff. Unfortunately, in the text that this thing's obviously reading, it does keep using certain words, which, if you're declaring that you've been lied to, then they lie to you about everything, and that includes the certain words for a certain place that we live. And I think you probably know what that is. So that was pretty cool, very interesting. I was going to say, on the front of what old me and Serge are going to do on the Len-nox saga, I found out some more information, which is very, very interesting, again, on the genealogy and the history of that name, and how that person is basically directly connected to certain families. Now, again, taking it all with a pinch of salt, and the old 10% rule, all of that could be fabricated as well, just to sort of draw us in. But nevertheless, there is a good possibility there that, again, as we've said with everything, things are not quite as they seem, and you will see when this comes out, and I'm hoping we'll get it done and out before Christmas. But if it won't be before, it will be the Christmas week after, because old Serge is coming over a couple of days before Christmas, and it does take a bit of time to put it together. But when you look at one of the other family members, and then you look at the fact that this person's supposed to be an artist singer as well, never heard of it before, never heard of any of the material, the songs, whatever, but it's just funny how all this person's material was released from 2020 to 2023, right in the middle of a load of old nonsense, right? So that's another interesting little bit that we've made some pointers on that. And again, like we said, these people campaign for certain things. We call them people, just to be polite. They campaign for certain things. They then tell their fans, this is what you should be doing, and then go and do completely the opposite themselves, right in plain sight, and nobody ever slaps them on the wrist for it. So that's quite interesting, and we really have done quite a bit of background research into the Annie story, and I think, again, because it's a sort of an older act now, and as I've said before, this is no disrespect to the talent or talents that these people have. They're all very good at what they do, but as so many people say, these life-term actors. And I've been reading quite a lot more of Mark's book again, the number 3, which I highly recommend. This isn't to sort of sell Mark's book, but I was quite surprised. I'd forgotten how much of the first part of it was to do with the 2020 nonsense, and how to so many of us it was so obvious what was going on. And I think I said in one of my other little posts that a friend of ours read the beginning of it, and I said to him, take it home and read it, and he basically left it behind. I think the first chapter scared the living crap out of him, and I can't blame him really, because you know, if you realise what they could have or have done to you, yeah, it's not a particularly wonderful thing to sit down and ponder over. We just had another friend of ours who I've got quite friendly with. He's a bit older than me. He's not well now. He's got pancreatic C, and it's not looking too good. And he was perfectly all right a little while ago. And people will say, oh, it's just one of those things, Gaz, it's just one of those things. Well, there's been a lot of just one of those things over the last few years. So, yeah, Mark's book really does spell it out, and also showing the connections between certain higher end characters in the entertainment business and why they're involved with certain organisations. So I'll put a link in the description for this thing to do with the old world palaces and everything. And again, just it's very interesting, especially from a construction point of view. Hello, sounds like the old chainsaw's going somewhere. But as I've said before, if you think they lie about everything, that means everything. You cannot do the old rhubarb and custard. You just can't do it. You cannot be on the fence. You're either in or you're out. Simple as that. The other thing that was quite good I watched as well, and it sounds like we only watch this like for half an hour while we have coffee, but you know, some of the old philosophers from the past talking about you know, your own self-imprisonment and stuff like that, and basically how offloading not just physical items, getting things out of your life that really aren't important, but your whole being, your whole train of thought. You know, what is it that is in your life that drags you down? Can you get rid of it? If so, get rid of it, basically. And again, it's all common sense stuff, and that doesn't mean you've got to be horrible to people. That just means that at the end of the day, if it's not serving a purpose, then maybe it's time to just sort of say, right, well, I don't need to do that anymore. In the music studio biz sort of thing, they have a thing called headroom, and the headroom is the place where you have extra room for not effects, but basically what they call compression and so on. If you max out the headroom, now remember max headroom, right? If you max out the headroom, you've got no place to work on the final track without basically ruining it. And the same thing goes for your servo, your brain, your servo as they call it here. If your head is full of unnecessary clutter, worries, you know, you've got to meet up with somebody you don't particularly like and stuff like that, all little things like that, you start to run out of headroom. You should really be trying to, and it isn't easy, but I've done it. You should be trying to remove things that aren't important, aren't necessary, even little tiny things, the tiniest of things like when I decided that's it, no more dumb phone, right? I never wanted one in the first place, but you know, I got one so I could keep in touch with my girlfriend at the time, who was well, living in England. So people quite surprised when I got one, and it served its purpose. And took good pictures as well, and it was only a cheap one. It's like $79 or something, a Wicco. But once I got rid of that, that meant I had a lot more time to focus on things that were important as opposed to things that weren't. And there is a tendency, and I can't blame people, there is a tendency to have a look, see what's going on and so on. Well, I changed my mentality. I'm not there yet, but when I realised what the music industry was about, when I realised what people that I used to not necessarily aspire to, but liked, were all about, the materialistic world that they live in, the look at me brigade, I've removed some of that from my life. I still do a bit of it. I've just finished Steve Michael, the next 5 tracks, which we're actually going to put out as a full album now. And I really enjoyed doing it, and Steve's a real star, in the best way as well. I mean star as in, person, star man. I can't say that, can I? Star man. But you know what I mean, you get the idea. And a real pro, and so easy to work with. There's no stress. And his lyrical content, there's nothing derogatory in any of it. It's good uplifting stuff, and has a poignant message in places too. Whereas working with some other people who were just completely hard work, and I dreaded opening an email to see if I had anything from them. So I've eradicated that. The same as there are some people, no disrespect to them, but I used to speak to quite regularly, especially out in the States, and I don't anymore. And they naturally just disappear after a while anyway. So I've now got more room in my life to do things that are more valuable, like simple things like, trying to explain things to other people without sounding too over the top, I suppose, although I have been on a few of these things that have gone a bit over the top, but there you go. But things that are more important, like getting outside, doing the garden thing, doing the veg thing and everything, learning more about nature, learning more about where we came from while we're here. I don't think any of us will ever be able to answer that till the time comes. But anyway, so here we are, heading up for we've got the weekend coming, and we've got a thing here called the Teleton, which is our last sort of event of the year. So we're going on this walk, randonnée, at lunchtime and then a thing in the evening, and then that's it. Christmas week is ahead. Not that we really do any of that. It's just really a get together for us, but that's what's going on. So hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to have the old the Annie show out there, followed by just a shorter one on that Mexican trio, and then our little thing on the old interesting stuff on the City of London Police. So that's about it. Everybody keep doing what they're doing, and next year should be interesting. And as always, thanks for listening to me ramble on.